Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. It's Allison. I decided that today I wanted to start reading to you from the Love Notes journal that Chuck and I kept together through the years of our marriage. So many people, it's hard for them to believe in a love story, and I'm talking a romantic love story, right? Hopefully, we all have love of some sort in our life, but having a love story when it comes to romance, sometimes it's harder to find. Chuck and I found ours, and we didn't find it easily or smoothly. Um, we both came from a first marriage that carried all its own stuff. When we got married, we decided we just really wanted to pay attention. Our 24-year marriage, well, 23 years, but 24-year love story didn't just happen because we were lucky. We paid attention. My favorite quote from one of the few quotes that I can remember and be able to attribute is from Death of a Salesman, where I think it was Willie Loman says, "Attention must be paid." And we paid attention, Chuck and I did, in our marriage, to each other, to our relationship, to our marriage. We cherished and nourished each other, and we didn't do it perfectly. You know, we came into our marriage with a blended family, my three and his one. And we had our share of ups and downs with it. And he was active duty at the time, and he was going TDY quite frequently. And we had busy lives. I was working, he was working. There was just, it was a typical life that we were trying to build together. But through it all, we really did pay attention. And we resolved from the beginning that that would be the focus. We had our kids, and we were mom and dad. And then we had each other, and we were Chuck and Allison. And so when we put our bedroom together, our bedroom became, and this was back uh, in the 90s, before all of the words were out there and people were talking about this. But we created our bedroom to be a sanctuary for the two of us. It was where we were not just, we were not mom and dad. We were mom and dad the rest of the day, the rest of the weeks, the months, the years out there. We were mom and dad to our kids. In our bedroom, it was Chuck and Allison, a man and a woman. Our the we didn't have pictures of us with our kids, us with our parents, us with anybody else, but just each other. Pictures of he and I were in our bedroom to remind us of all of the different, the different times we'd had, the different experiences that we'd had. That was part of paying attention for us. And we kept to that. If our kids were going to, even if the door was open, they had to knock first to come in. We didn't invite them to come and lounge around on our bed. That bed was ours. It was our marriage bed. And that may sound, I don't know, maybe to some people that might sound cold, or I don't know. We Kids were raised differently, right? In that time, we see a lot of memes about how, if you're a child of the 80s or 90s, you just kind of, you got on with stuff. And so for us, it wasn't cold because it allowed us, by having our space as Chuck and Allison, it allowed us to kind of rebuild our energy for being mom and dad out there in the rest of our lives. And so we did keep our bedroom as a sanctuary. And one of the ways that we did pay attention also in our marriage, and it probably about our 6th year in, is that I talked to Chuck, and like, instead of, we used to always give each other cards, right? Like, people give each other, or at least they used to exchange cards for birthdays and anniversaries and all, special occasions. And cards very often will just get, put away, lost, never looked at again. I wanted us to be able to see the words that we wrote to each other, to be able to refer to them easily. And so for our 6th anniversary, I bought a little journal. It was just something simple. It's just this. And we started writing in it. The goal of this particular journal, excuse me, was to instead of exchanging cards, we would write notes to each other. Whoever wrote the note, if Chuck wrote a note to me, then he would place it on my pillow, the journal on my pillow. And if I wrote the note to him, then I would place it on his pillow so that he could see it at some point, so that I could see it at some point. We wrote to each other for, he'd leave little notes before he went TDY. I'd leave notes for him, before I'd go to visit my family. I had family in Colorado and up in New England. And we didn't write in it every day. That was the original goal, of course, but we were busy. We had 4 kids between us and jobs and school and everything else. So we didn't write in it every day. None of this was ever about being perfect or doing it perfectly. It was always just about paying attention. And we had a very, very successful marriage. We had 24 years together. And I always called it a love affair marriage. And the night Chuck died on April 21st of 2013, we truly were just as much in love with one another as we had been, so many years earlier when we first got together. And it had, of course, over the years, there's that first flush of love. I don't think you have to lose that first flush of love. I think you can keep that first flush of love and you build on it, right? And that's pretty much what we did. We built on that. And over the years, it just grew to, and which is what love hopefully does, right? It grew into this true intimacy of knowing one another, which, what's that old quote? Familiarity breeds contempt. Whoever wrote that, I think, was jaded on life. The familiarity of knowing one another, it deepened our bond with each other. And there's so many ways that people can do this, right? Any couple. The way that Chuck and I chose to do it worked so beautifully for us. And when he died, I found that book again. We'd kept it with us, in our years of travel. And I went and I dug out this book because this has the words that we wrote between us for so many years. And I just want everyone to know that true love can exist and does exist. And Chuck and I, and the marriage we had, the relationship we had, is proof positive of that. We showed it in word and we showed it in deeds throughout our days. And so the entire purpose of this video and the videos that I'm going to be doing as time progresses, and I read different excerpts from this, I want to talk about love and how we can find it. I would love to hear your love stories and little excerpts from your love stories. I've met so many people along the way as I've traveled who are much younger than I, and I'm 65 now, who have either never had the opportunity to love, to be in a truly loving romantic relationship, or who just don't believe in it. And I think that's the saddest thing of all. But it doesn't just happen by luck. Maybe Chuck and I met by luck, though I would argue with that too, maybe. But certainly the marriage that we built and the relationship that we built did not happen because of luck. It happened because we paid attention. And so each of my videos that I do, it's going to be me reading a little excerpt and maybe talking about what was happening at that time that we wrote, if I remember, which I may very well not. But just to talk about love, because Chuck has been dead for 10 years. And I live on all of the love that he left behind for me. And while it isn't enough, I've made it to be enough because that's what I have, right? And so I know for 24 years, I had this wonderful man in my life who loved and cherished me more than I've ever been loved and cherished. I felt very much the same for him. I absolutely adored him. And I told him that while he was alive. He knew every minute of it, how much I adored him and how much I loved him. and how much I was in love with him. So, yeah. So this is the little book I got. Um, they didn't have as much of a variety of choices back then. I mean, we're talking early 90s. Now you can get anything, but this was even long before Amazon and everything else, right? So, and we didn't have a lot of money. So I found this, and I honestly, I chose it because Chuck's nickname for me was Sunshine. So, but what I've done with it, we wrote in it, and I've put little cards in it, that Chuck gave me. There's some postcards he sent me, um, tickets from shows we went to and movies and all of that. Uh, at one point, apparently I don't know where we were, but we'd had our names translated into some language, Chinese. I don't know. I honestly could not tell you. But, Chuck and Allison, right over there. So, whatever language that is, stubs from movie tickets and shows that we went to. But but I'm not going to read. I'm only going to read one excerpt each time, right? So you open it up, and let's see this. It says this book belongs to Allison and Chuck, and with the date on the occasion of our 6th wedding anniversary, February 18th, 1996. So apparently we had gone. Okay, that would be from a later time, so I won't mention it. So on our 6th wedding anniversary is when we got this. I don't know if I'd read something or heard something somewhere that inspired me to get this book. Chuck always used to give me so many cards. He'd give me like 3 cards for every occasion, like a funny one, a romantic one, and then one other one. And so I have lots of cards, and I'd give him one card. And I just thought I really liked the idea of having a journal to keep all these things in. And so, my first passage into it, and my nickname for him at the time was Sarge. He was a master sergeant in the Air Force, and we lived in New Jersey. He was stationed at it was at that time McGuire Air Force Base. Now it's Joint Base MDL. So. I gave it to him right before our anniversary. And I wrote, "Dearest Sarge, this is my gift to you for our anniversary. I know it seems very simple, but what is going to go into it will make it so beautiful. I have always kept journals, and I love to write. But this journal is not solely mine. It is for both of us. And it is not necessarily for long entries. It is a way for us to keep messages for and to each other. I'd like for us to write in it daily if possible, if only to say I love you. We'll find a special place for it where only we can see it. It can hold letters to each other, things that happened to us that day, or thoughts that we each have, whatever we want." So, my thoughts. I have Kisa so much on my mind, and my heart is hurting so much. Along with the pain, though, is the thankfulness I have that you are here with me, to be strong for me and to see me through this. Last night you held me in your arms and talked to me and loved me through my pain. You hold such a strong place in my heart. There are no words to express what it has meant to me to have you in my life, not only in the weeks since my brother died, but in the years since we met. I love you. I love you forever, Allison. So, my brother Kisa, my younger brother, who is next to me in age, younger, he died on January 26th of 1996 of Hodgkin's cancer. And in the year preceding his death, Chuck and I would go out to Colorado where he lived, where my brother Kisa lived. And Chuck had retired from the military, and he hadn't been able to find a job yet. And money was tight, and we had the 4 kids and schedules and everything else. Chuck somehow always found the money to buy me a ticket so that I could go out and be with my brother Kisa and his wife, Sarah. And And so that's what this first journal is about. It was just so shocking. It was just so shocking when Kisa died, because even he was, it was cancer. We knew he was going to die. We knew it was terminal. But even when you know that, it's still shocking when death finally happens. And so I had been fortunate to be able to go out to be with Kisa, and his path was like this. We had all gathered at one point, all my family and all of his friends out in Colorado, because we thought he was going to die. And and then and it was really intense, right? And we were all saying goodbye to him. And then just a few weeks later, he sent me a picture, and he was camping on the Continental Divide, and I started calling him Lazarus because he kept on rising up from the dead. But in January of 1996, it was finally too much, and he died. And so I had been able to be with him at different times, and I was able to be with him when he died. And that was my first experience of being with anyone who was dying, and it was really intense. It was kind of like, the way I described it afterwards was that it was like I had a near death experience, but it wasn't mine. It was my brother's. And when I got back to New Jersey, Chuck just did. It's nothing more than anybody would do, right? But he was just there for me. He was present, and so that's what I'm alluding to in the passage that I wrote to him. That he just did a lot of sitting with me. He did a lot of putting his arms around me and holding me. He did a lot of listening as I would talk about my brother. And as I talked, honestly, after I came back after Kisa's death, everything that had happened while Kisa was dying was so, it's not even the sadness of the emotion. I had experienced so much in watching Kisa die that I really just had to go over and over and over the story as I was trying to piece together and try to put it in its place. And that's why I say it was like I had a near death experience that wasn't my own. And it took me a couple years to really even find the terminology for it. But in the meanwhile, Chuck just did a lot of listening. He did so much listening for me, and supported me so much, and just kind of took over with as much as he could, given his schedule of doing the parenting, not babysitting, because parents do not babysit, they parent. And that's what Chuck did. He parented our children. His daughter lived with her mom mostly, but she'd come for occasional weekends. And but with my three, Chuck became their dad, and so he genuinely parented them, and he really took up every bit of extra anything that I needed, as I was trying to figure this stuff out with my brother. So and deal with all of the grief. So that was my first entry for that. And there's always more to the story, right? But I'm going to let this be just what it is for right now. And then I will, if you have any questions, please just let me know. Shoot them in the comments. I'm also on Facebook at An Odyssey of Love, and you can message me there. And let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know about any experiences you've had. Let me know your love stories also. And I would love to see pictures or anything else that you have. All right. So thank you for joining me for this first video, kind of a vlog, I guess, for reading from our Love Notes journal. All right. And I will catch up with you again. Ti amo.